We are an indoor tactical simulation company. We service both law enforcement as well as civilians. We utilize simulators powered by Virtua in order to develop stress inoculation. It's very, very similar to being at a live fire range. In fact, we use real firearms. They've been modified for use in our simulators to just deploy a laser beam. But you do get the full recoil as well as the sound experience. And it's force-on-force engagements, learning how to deal with the stresses that take place when somebody's shooting rounds back at you.
So, in a nutshell, we're an indoor firearms tactical training center.
You want me to start?
All right, go ahead.
Okay. My name's Stephen Lieberman. I'm the chief trainer and one of the owners of the Artemis Defense Institute. We're located in Lake Forest, California, and this is my wife, Sandy. She's one of the other owners. Yeah, I would say, at a very fundamental level, our mission is to save lives. Okay, when you have a law enforcement officer or an armed civilian, and they're dealing with the stresses of armed combat, their critical decision-making skills usually deteriorate substantially. By placing one of these trainees in our simulators and being able to mimic those same stresses, they're able to better be able to deal with that and ideally prevail. Yes, it's open to anybody. I will tell you, the ideal candidate for us is the woman 25 to 45 who is thinking about purchasing a firearm and has virtually no firearms experience. We offer a number of different programs. We have what we call a certification program. Essentially, we wanted to take firearms training, which is quintessentially the American martial art. Okay, unfortunately, it's typically not taught in martial arts format. It's typically done in a seminar-based format. You go to a class for 6 hours, and you put your gun away, and you don't touch it again for another 9 months. We wanted to create a system where people were coming in on a weekly basis. Firearms training, firearms usage is a perishable skill. All right. Personally, for me, after 48 hours of non-shooting, I can see a marked decrease in my abilities. Okay. I can't even imagine what I would be like if I went 9 months without shooting. And the reality is most people will put their firearm away in the safe and not touch it for 9 months to a year. So through that certification program, we encourage people to be in here on a weekly basis.
And that's a comprehensive program. That entails classroom, knowledge work, and discovery, as well as lab work. So hands-on experimenting in the lab.
We also have what we call bulk purchases, where people are able to buy individual sessions in bulk and use it, as they want, and transfer it among other family members or friends.
And that's a lab-only program where you only have access to the lab, but you have it at certain time frames, all based on reservations.
And then we're going to be developing a membership program as well, and that will actually allow you to not only purchase time in the lab, we also have our FFL, so members will be allowed to purchase firearms. Well, the best thing to do is to come in and get a demonstration. Okay, you can actually see the place, see how our systems work, get the opportunity to actually shoot a couple of rounds onto a steel target so you can feel what the recoil's like. The next step after that is to begin one-on-one training sessions. It's extremely important for us to develop marksmanship abilities, okay? To be able to put lead on target in a stress-free environment is critical. One of the things that all of our instructors say, if in a stress-free environment you're shooting a target group like this, as soon as we introduce stress, target group extends to this, okay? If in a stress-free environment you're shooting like this, when the stress is, now you're shooting out to here, bullets are missing the target completely, okay?
Prior to getting on the range, though, prior to getting into the lab, you do spend some time in the classroom setting to get acquainted to the vocabulary that is used here within the lab.
That's absolutely true. Yeah, and we have a number of different, for lack of a better term, introductory programs. All of them are velvet glove treatment. We were very, we wanted somebody to come in and feel very, very comfortable, shooting. Safe. We have the same training or firearm safety rules that you would at a live fire range. We can't have two different types of training protocols, one for here and one for a live fire range. So we do treat each gun as though they're loaded and capable of firing a live round, but we don't have to worry so much about an accidental discharge or anything like that. So, one of the fascinating things that we've seen, we have people that are competitive shooters, guys that spend every week out on the range. They're here, they walk on in, they look at the system, give them a Glock. They shoot the Glock, they're shooting at a paper or steel target, and they are doing very well. They know they're coming out of the holster properly, they're engaging their targets properly, they clearly know what they're doing. Typically, their response as they begin this training, is, wow, this feels like a real gun. And it's cheaper because we don't have ammunition issues. As soon as we finish our skill builders and we switch to a force-on-force engagement where now there's a human being shooting back at them and they're having to engage, everything falls apart. They're shooting randomly. They're not looking at their front sight. They're just shooting all over the place. They holster up. They've got sweat dripping off of their forehead, and their response to me is, "Wow, I thought I was much better than that." Yeah, it's a typical response. So for the intermediate to the advanced shooter, unless you're going into armed combat every weekend, and I hope you're not. But unless you are, we're able to provide an environment that's pretty much unheard of.
We are in a 7,600 square foot facility. 5,600 of it is the warehouse, fully climate controlled, where we call the lab. And in our lab is where we handle all of the hands-on firearms training.
We also utilize a classroom capable of holding up to 30 students, and then our lobby, of course, when you first come in the building. One of the things that we encourage with the lab, the area that we're at right now where we're filming, this is an area, the reason we chose lab as opposed to shooting range or indoor range or things, we want to encourage mistakes. That's one of the other fundamentals of this place. Since we do not utilize live fire, and this is an ammunition-free environment, you can try out new tactics. You can experiment without the fear of, accidental discharges or negligent discharges. And you can see what works and what doesn't. You can fail here and not fail on the outside. No, on a very basic level, nothing like this exists anywhere in the United States. We're one of the first commercial organizations to start training civilians. Also, most law enforcement agencies, if they have a simulator system, very few are going to be comparable to the Virtua system, but assuming that they even have a Virtua unit, they typically only have one. We utilize three. One of the areas that we identified, law enforcement specifically, is an inability to shoot on the move. And we encourage that. Static shooting, standing in one place and engaging a target, doesn't lend itself well to survival. Okay, we need people to be moving, actively seeking cover, shooting while moving. Utilizing all three systems simultaneously, going from simulator to simulator with the same firearm, doing weapons manipulations drills, removing magazines, inserting new magazines, engaging in targets, having magazine failures while engaged in targets, trying to seek cover, extremely important. Nothing like that exists, as far as we know, anywhere in the United States. That's the number one selling point. Additionally, I think one of the things that separates us from other shooting schools per se, we don't deal exclusively in the biomechanics of pressing a trigger and putting lead on target. We focus on the psychological, the physiological, combat mindset, legal ramifications of use of force. I happen to be an attorney, so looking at the civil liabilities as well as the criminal implications that are involved in this is extremely important. One of our instructors, we were having a discussion out in the lobby, and he's an LAPD officer and one of our instructors. And he said, I have never had a single person come through this building, walk out and say, yeah, you know what, that was okay. You know, it's always, you know, as soon as they walk into the lab and they see the simulators, it's usually a jaw-dropping experience. And when they're walking out the building, you can hear the chatter between the, you know, oh my God, that was incredible. That was the most mind-boggling thing. I mean, it's all been extremely positive.
So we rely a great deal on word-of-mouth advertising. We try to build partnerships with other individuals in the industry. We try to get them into our facility, have them try it out. Once they become believers, then they turn around and share their experience with others. We also put out the 30-minute session cards, you know, to give to our partners, to give out to people, just to get them into the door and say, hey, what do you guys think? And then from that point, it just snowballs.
No, we also do industry demos as well. You know, we've had a couple of different law enforcement agencies that have, you know, essentially looked to book time just to come in and see the system, things like that. We encourage that, obviously, as well.
Right, and organizations, and that's how we found you, you know, by inviting organizations in to try out our system and see what we've got and to see how it can help individuals. Artemis has evolved quite a bit since we opened our doors and when we started writing our business plan about 8 months ago. Initially, our business model only incorporated training civilians. At this point, it incorporates a great deal of law enforcement training and contracts and potentially military contracts as well. At a pure fundamental level, do we anticipate on growing? Absolutely. At this point, we are hoping to bring in a couple of more Artemis Defense Institute facilities throughout Southern California. Knowing that what we are teaching here is something that can be translated to everybody's day-to-day awareness.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, when I see somebody, especially one of our officers, come in and to be candid with you, have a mistake. I had a situation the other night where an officer was going through a training scenario. He was utilizing the AR-15 and forgot to take it off safe. He came up on a threat, pressed the trigger, and nothing happened. And he was extremely hard on himself, you know, afterwards. And, you know, I looked at him and I said, do you think you'll ever be in a situation like that again? He said, nope. Nope, I will never make that mistake again. Knowing that he worked through that issue here and will never involve, you know, be put into that position in the real world is huge.